This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
On night one, Joe Biden passes the torch to Kamala Harris. I'm Steve Futterman at the Democratic Convention in Chicago.
Donald Trump and J.D. Vance spend the first day of the Democratic National Convention in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. I'm John Stolnis.
Former U.S. Representative George Santos has pleaded guilty to wire fraud in his federal fraud case.
And in that regard, I failed you.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
U.S. officials say that Iran was responsible for the hack of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
On Wall Street, stocks are coming off another win yesterday. That rally's continuing. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Bribery charges against a councilman in D.C. I'm Clayton Neville.
A chaotic first day of school in St. Louis got off to a rocky start. I'm Ed Donahue.
All ahead on America in the Morning. To the chants of "Thank you, Joe," President Biden was greeted with numerous ovations as he addressed the Democratic National Convention, passing the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris for the 2024 election. Steve Futterman reports from Chicago. The president's emotional welcome capped off the first night of the D.N.C.
As Democrats look to their future, night one of their convention here focused on what will soon be their past.
My father, your 46th president of the United States.
Less than 2 months ago, it was assumed that Joe Biden would be the nominee. But here, after being introduced by his daughter Ashley, Joe Biden addressed the convention as the soon-to-be former president.
Are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz?
He discussed his decision to step aside and not seek re-election.
I love the job, but I love my country more.
And he repeatedly went after Donald Trump.
We saved democracy in 2020, and now we must save it again in 2024.
Kamala Harris did make a brief appearance, and she addressed the convention.
Joe, thank you for your historic leadership, for your lifetime of service to our nation, and for all you will continue to do. We are forever grateful to you.
Also receiving a huge ovation was former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who had some sharp words aimed at the man who defeated her in 2016.
So it is no surprise, is it, that he is lying about Kamala's record? He's mocking her name and her laugh. Sounds familiar. But we have him on the run now.
Outside the arena yesterday, there were, as expected, pro-Palestinian protests, but the numbers were much smaller than organizers had predicted, and it was generally peaceful. This evening on night two, featured speakers will include Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. I'm Steve Futterman at the Democratic Convention in Chicago.
As Democrats convene in Chicago, the Republican side of the race for the White House rallied in the all-important battleground state of Pennsylvania. John Stolnis has that story.
After touring a manufacturing plant in York, former President Donald Trump promised the Keystone State will be an integral part of his plans to boost the economy.
I'm here today to deliver a simple message. When I'm back in the White House, America's future will be built right here in Pennsylvania. And it will be built by American workers like you.
Trump called Harris and her policies an economy wrecker and a country destroyer.
It ruined California when she was the Attorney General. It crushed our middle class, demolished our border, set the world on fire, and now she wants to be promoted to the job killer in chief. But much more than job killer, everything else is going to go bad.
Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, spoke at a Philadelphia plant that manufactures medical supplies.
And I believe whether you're the owner of a company like Dysorb or a worker in a company like this, you ought to have a president who stands up for your business and your job instead of a Vice President Kamala Harris who's been trying to tear all that stuff down.
And he also addressed the abortion issue, arguing Trump's actions actually helped bring the country together.
He's tried to find some common ground in this country that has been divided by this question for 50 years. He said, look, Pennsylvania is going to want to have a different abortion policy from Ohio, which is going to want to have a different policy from California. Let the states decide. Let the people in those states decide.
Trump and Vance plan to hit the campaign trail in battleground states hard this week. Trump in Michigan later today for a speech on crime and safety. The two men will appear together in North Carolina for a speech on national security on Wednesday. Thursday, Trump travels to Arizona to visit the southern border, followed by a stop in Nevada to end the week. I'm John Stolnis.
Former congressman pleads guilty. That and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning, a rare astronomical occurrence as both a supermoon and blue moon grace our skies. With the nation's forecast, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
An area of low pressure that brought some gusty thunderstorms to portions of Montana yesterday will continue progressing eastward today, with a few more storms forming through North and South Dakota as well as Nebraska. These storms will have the potential to produce damaging winds as well as local flash flooding. Scattered afternoon thunderstorms will also form through the rest of the Rockies into the Four Corners from western Montana and Idaho southward through Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. Some of those storms could also produce locally damaging winds. Meanwhile, a storm that produced heavy rain over parts of the east over the last 2 days will be mostly offshore today, though there will still be some showers and thunderstorms through parts of coastal Carolinas into Georgia. Florida will also have a few heavier afternoon thunderstorms throughout the state. And then behind that system, it is going to feel much more comfortable, even giving a little taste of fall-like weather through much of the Great Lakes, into the northeast, and even southward through the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. There will be some scattered showers across the northeast from New York into New England, but otherwise it'll be dry with highs in the 60s, 70s, and lower 80s, which is much more typical of late September. Some relief from that system will include parts of northern Oklahoma, but the rest of the state into Texas will once again have plenty of sunshine and a hot afternoon with highs well into the 100s. The Northwest will continue to have showers forming along an area of low pressure in the region, especially along the coast in Washington, and the rest of the West Coast will be dry with sunshine. That's the weather across America. Santa Fe, New Mexico will have sun mixing with clouds and an afternoon thundershower and a high of 94. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Former Republican Congressman George Santos pleads guilty to charges stemming from fraudulent activity during his 2022 midterm campaign. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports on what happens next for the one-time expelled member of Congress.
He's a liar, he's a master manipulator, and a con man. But one thing he's not above the law.
Speaking to reporters, Santos said he never imagined pleading guilty.
But it is a necessary one because it is the right thing to do. It's not only a recognition of my misrepresentations to others, but more profoundly, it is my own recognition of the lies I told myself over these past years.
Santos was indicted on charges that he stole from political donors, used campaign contributions for personal expenses, lied to Congress about his wealth, and collected unemployment benefits while working. He was expelled from Congress after an ethics investigation found what it called overwhelming evidence that Santos had broken the law. He alluded to that while addressing his former constituents.
But you also trusted me to represent you with honor and to uphold the values that are essential to our democracy. And in that regard, I failed you.
Santos faces more than 6 years in prison under federal guidelines and owes at least $370,000 in restitution.
I'm taking responsibility because I have to. There's no other way around it. To my family, friends, and supporters, and the people of New York's 3rd Congressional District, I offer my deepest apologies.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
U.S. intelligence officials say they're confident they know who hacked Donald Trump's presidential campaign and tried to hack the former campaign of President Biden. With the latest details, here's correspondent Lisa Dwyer.
U.S. officials say that Iran was responsible for the hack of Donald Trump's presidential campaign, casting the cyber intrusion as part of a brazen and broader effort by Tehran to interfere in American politics. The Trump campaign and private sector cybersecurity investigators previously thought that Iran was responsible for the hacking attempts. Now, for the first time, the U.S. government has also assigned blame on Iran for the attack. The joint statement from the FBI and other federal agencies also indicates that Iran was responsible for attempts to hack Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign, saying hackers have sought access to individuals from both presidential campaigns. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
On the heels of Bidenomics, Kamala Harris proposes a corporate tax hike. We'll have that story and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. You're with America in the Morning. Wall Street continues its winning ways. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a winning day for the major averages. The S&P 500 index and the NASDAQ each hit fresh record highs yesterday.
It's going to be very, very difficult to stop this market from going higher. And the reason is data is being set up to be lukewarm. Good news is good news, bad news is bad news. But you blend those two together and you get lukewarm data overall, and this market wants to go higher.
Bank of America's Chris Heisey on CNBC. No big economic data coming this week. Next week, we're going to get another read on inflation. Gold closed at another record high yesterday, above $2,541 an ounce. Democratic presidential hopeful Kamala Harris, the first candidate to announce a clear plan to attack the U.S. debt problem.
Raising corporate taxes, she's now endorsing a hike in the corporate tax rate to 28%. That is, NBC News reports, her first major proposal to raise revenues. It is something of a reversal for corporate America, which has been enjoying 21% corporate rates since the Trump tax cuts. And of course, President Trump has said he will keep those in place and perhaps go farther if he can.
CNBC's Eamon Javers. GM making fresh job cuts.
General Motors is laying off more than 1,000 salaried employees globally in its software and services division. That includes roughly 600 job cuts at GM's tech campus near Detroit. In a statement, said the company is simplifying, quote, for speed and excellence.
CNBC's Kelly Evans. More people are trying to avoid involving their insurance company after a minor car accident. About 3/4 of all U.S. drivers say they try to pay cash for repairs now rather than call the insurer and risk a premium increase, according to a survey by LendingTree.
McDonald's investors are, well, frankly, all mixed smiles.
Yeah, they're bringing in more customers. McDonald's is poised for a comeback for investors, according to a note by Evercore ISI.
Analysts writing that the company appears poised to recover in the back half of 2024 and 2025, writing, quote, last week's sales success with commemorative cups evidences that the brand is strong and becoming less encumbered by a poor value perception. The franchisees, which operate more than 90%, of McDonald's locations, they'll be the ones to set the prices. And what's key here with this national value offer that they've had for more than a month now is that McDonald's is definitely on a pause right now in terms of price hikes. Now they're looking for ways to bring those prices down and bring customers back in.
CNBC's Kate Rogers. On today's watch list, we get earnings from Lowe's, Coty, and home builder Toll Brothers. Tonight is the extended deadline for the Department of Justice to decide on whether to block or approve the proposed merger of Alaska and Hawaiian Airlines. And Paramount Plus is now $8 a month for new subscribers. The plan with Showtime goes up to $13 a month today.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, first day of school, transportation nightmare. Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. A Washington, D.C. councilman is facing bribery charges. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Councilmember Trayon White represents Ward 8 in D.C. Federal court records show that the councilman's accused of using his position to pressure government agencies to renew lucrative public safety contracts. In exchange, he would get tens of thousands of dollars in cash and future potential kickbacks.
Anytime any part of the government is questioned in this way, it distracts from the very important work that has to be done.
D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser was asked by reporters about the charges against White, and she described the potential conflict of interest.
With our focus on alternatives to law enforcement strategies, which we're very committed to, this also puts those very effective strategies at risk.
White had his first court hearing yesterday. He's due back in court next month. I'm Clayton Neville.
For many kids and teachers, Monday was the first day of school for the 2024-2025 academic year. And for both parents and students in St. Louis, it'll be one they may never forget. Ed Donahue explains.
3 bus vendors in St. Louis pulled out at the last minute. Hundreds of parents had to scramble to get their kids to school. St. Louis Public Schools had been struggling to devise a plan to get kids to classes since March, when Missouri Central School Bus Company canceled its contract for the current school year. Instead of hiring a single vendor, the plan was to use other school bus companies, metro buses, taxis, and other shuttle services. Some parents were given gas cards to get their kids to school. Parents and volunteers were standing at bus stops and taking other steps to help make sure kids were safe and that their rides showed up. The district in St. Louis is still working on alternative plans. I'm Ed Donahue.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, August 20th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Chicago is reprising its role as National Political Convention host. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Donald Trump and his vice presidential pick have made various stops in Pennsylvania.
Our country will be destroyed if she gets in.
I'm Jackie Quinn.
A new report alleging impeachable misconduct against President Biden. I'm Clayton Neville.
2 women were killed in separate flash floods in Oxford, Connecticut.
Swept down the river.
I'm Julie Walker.
One of the biggest names in daytime talk has passed away. I'm Kevin Carr.
A Marine from Virginia will receive the service's top non-combat medal. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. 16 inches of rain in parts of the Northeast. We'll have more on that story coming up. First, today's forecast. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
A storm that produced heavy rain over the east over the last 2 days will be mostly offshore today. There will still be some showers and thunderstorms through portions of the coastal Carolinas into Georgia. Florida could also have a few heavier afternoon thunderstorms throughout the state. But behind that system, it is going to feel much more comfortable and even give a little taste of fall-like weather through much of the Great Lakes, into the Northeast, and even southward through the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. There will still be some scattered showers across the Northeast from New York into New England, but otherwise we're looking at dry weather with highs in the 60s, 70s, and lower 80s, and that's much more typical of late September. Some relief from that system will continue into northern Oklahoma, but the rest of the state into Texas will once again have plenty of sunshine and a hot afternoon, highs mostly into the 100s. An area of low pressure that brought some gusty thunderstorms to portions of Montana yesterday will continue moving eastward today, and that'll produce a few more storms through North and South Dakota as well as Nebraska. These storms will have the potential to produce damaging winds as well as local flash flooding. We'll have some scattered afternoon thunderstorms continuing to form through the rest of the Rockies into the Four Corners from western Montana and Idaho southward through Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. Few of those storms could also produce locally damaging winds. In the northwest, we'll continue to see a few showers forming along an area of low pressure in the region, especially along the Washington coast, but it will sneak a little bit farther south into Oregon as well. And then the rest of the west coast will be largely dry. We'll have plenty of sunshine and afternoon temperatures in the 60s and 70s along the coast and warming to over 100 in the deserts. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A myriad of speakers took the stage on the first night of the Democratic National Convention, which include Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock, and several lieutenant governors, with the keynote speeches coming from former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who discussed cracking the glass ceiling, and President Joe Biden, who passed the torch to his Vice President Kamala Harris. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports on Chicago's place in political convention history, now covering parts of 3 centuries.
Chicago is reprising its role as national political convention host, one it's played more than any other city. Chicago has hosted 25 conventions, the first in 1860.
Country's unraveling at the seams. Civil war seems imminent.
And Chicago historian Paul Durica says Republicans picked their nominee
by the name of Abraham Lincoln.
1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt showed up in Chicago promising to help America escape the Great Depression.
He pledges himself to a New Deal.
Then there was 1968, what political analyst Todd Belt calls bad history for Chicago.
You can't think of it without thinking about that.
Anti-war protesters violently clashed with police in the streets during the DNC, leading to a memorable bit of misspeaking by Mayor Richard Daley.
The policeman isn't there to create disorder. The policeman is there to preserve disorder.
The last Chicago convention was in 1996, where Democrats nominated Bill Clinton for another term.
Don't know if I can find a fancy way to say this, but I accept.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The Republican presidential ticket spent the day campaigning in a key battleground state. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were making the case for a second Trump term and contrasting their views from their Democrat rivals.
When I'm back in the White House, America's future will be built right here in Pennsylvania.
Former President Donald Trump at a manufacturing plant in Pennsylvania.
Kamala will bury American workers in regulations. I will liberate our workers with the largest regulatory cuts ever recorded. We've already done some of them, but she put them right back. They put them right back.
Blasting Vice President Kamala Harris for her policies on immigration and the economy.
Kamala Harris is an economy wrecker and a country destroyer. Our country will be destroyed if she gets in. Her radical liberal agenda ruined San Francisco. It ruined California when she was the Attorney General. It crushed our middle class, demolished our border, set the world on fire.
His running mate, J.D. Vance.
We've got the best people, we've got the best workers, we've got the best natural resources and the most beautiful country anywhere in the world. America is ready to be unleashed. But to do that, we've got to kick out Kamala Harris and bring back Donald J. Trump.
Dumping in Philadelphia.
She wants to make groceries and homes more affordable for American citizens. Well, Kamala Harris, where have you been?
Kamala Harris's radical liberal playbook sends jobs and wealth to other countries. The jobs go to other countries, and the wealth goes to other countries. Every policy in the Trump agenda is designed to bring the jobs and wealth back home to America, where it belongs and where it's going to stay. Kamala puts America last. I put America first.
Joyful vision for the future.
I'm Jackie Quinn.
On the same day, President Joe Biden spoke at the Democratic National Convention in Washington, D.C., Republicans on 3 congressional committees have reached a conclusion surrounding his potential impeachment. Correspondent Clayton Neville has details.
Republicans say that President Biden took part in impeachable conduct. A 292-page report by the House Oversight Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, and the House Ways and Means Committee found that the president abused his office and defrauded the U.S. to enrich his family. Those committees are leading the impeachment inquiry against the president. The report came down as former President Trump hit the campaign trail in Pennsylvania.
And they don't call him Crooked Joe for no reason. They said President Biden engaged in impeachable conduct. and said he abused his office and defrauded the United States of America to enrich his family.
The report alleges that since 2014, the Biden family and its associates received $27 million from foreign governments and entities.
He also found that while Biden was serving as vice president, the Biden family got more than $8 million in loans from Democrat benefactors, and they said that those loans have never been repaid. Those are the best kind of loans, aren't they?
The former president even implicating Vice President Harris.
She knew everything, and the senators knew what was going on. And by the way, I had my own classified documents case, and I was totally exonerated.
The White House and congressional Democrats write the report off as a political stunt in an election year, and President Biden denies the accusations against him. Republicans, though, insisting there is overwhelming evidence that Biden participated in a, quote, conspiracy to monetize his office of public trust to enrich his family. Now, not much is expected to come from the report as far as immediate action. It does not formally recommend the House move forward with an impeachment vote. I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return on America in the Morning, woman kills her alleged sex trafficker and luxury yacht sinks. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. I'm John Trout. Welcome back here with America in the Morning. A massive rainstorm that dumped as much as 16 inches of rain in parts of the Northeast created historic flash flooding conditions in Connecticut that led to the deaths of 2 women. Correspondent Julie Walker reports that authorities referred to this deluge as a 1 in 1,000 year flood.
This is a tragic and devastating day for Oxford. We have this morning recovered 2 bodies in Little River. They were both women. As I understand it, they're both Oxford residents.
2 women were killed in separate flash floods.
It's the worst I've ever seen. I've been a firefighter for 37 years. I've never seen water like that.
Fire Chief Scott Pelletier says rescuers were trying to help one of the women.
Firefighters were on scene attempting to get the victim from the vehicle. When a rash of water came in, the vehicle shifted, the firefighter fell down, the victim fell down, got swept down the river.
He says another woman got out of her car and was clinging to a signpost.
Firefighters were in there with a high-wheel vehicle trying to get to her, and the racing water was too much for her, and she got swept away.
In Southbury, Lucas Barber saved a man with a prosthetic leg and his dog from fast-moving water.
I just kind of waited and swam right up. It looked like his car was already filling with water, and so I pried his door open by leveraging my foot against the side of his car.
Officials say there were scores of rescues, including almost 50 at a campground and 19 from structures along the river. I'm Julie Walker.
A woman who killed her alleged sex trafficker has been sentenced to jail time in Wisconsin. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
Crystal Kaiser made headlines at the age of 17 when she shot and killed 34-year-old Randall Volar at his home in Wisconsin in 2018, burned down his house, and stole his BMW. Now a Kenosha County judge has handed her a sentence of 11 years in prison and 5 years of extended supervision. She'll get credit for about 1.5 years of time served. Anti-violence groups flocked to Kaiser's defense and raised money for her original bail. She said Volar had been molesting and selling her as a prostitute for over a year leading up to his death. Her attorneys had argued she was legally allowed to kill the man under a state law that absolves sex trafficking victims. She faced multiple charges, but pled guilty in May to second-degree reckless homicide to avoid a long trial and possible life sentence. I'm Jennifer King.
In the Middle East, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that Israel has accepted a proposal to a ceasefire in Gaza and hostage release with Hamas. but the terrorist group has yet to sign off on the deal. Blinken spoke after holding a 2.5-hour meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and will travel to Egypt and Qatar today for further negotiations. Blinken called the Israeli acceptance a decisive moment, but warned that unless Hamas joins the talks and agrees to the parameters of the deal, this could be the last opportunity to put an end to the 10 months of conflict and return the more than 100 Israeli hostages Hamas is holding captive. Fears of a broader conflict have increased in recent weeks following the assassination of 2 top Hamas and Hezbollah leaders and threats from Iran to attack Israel. In Italy, 6 people are missing, including 2 Americans, after a luxury yacht was hit by a tornado and sunk off the coast of Sicily. Correspondent Karen Shamas has the latest.
British tech magnate Mike Lynch, who was acquitted in June in a big US fraud trial, was among those who remain unaccounted for after their chartered sailboat capsized off Porticello near Palermo. The ship sank when a tornado over the water, known as a waterspout, struck the area overnight, according to officials. Fisherman Francesco Cefalu said he saw a flare about 2,000 feet from the coast. We raised the alarm to the port's Coast Guard, and about 3 hours later we returned. We think the missing people are inside. Police divers were trying to reach the hull of the ship 163 feet underwater, where those unaccounted for were believed to be. I'm Karen Shamas.
Scientists have been studying large language model AIs like ChatGPT and have concluded they're not evolving. Chuck Palm explains in today's Tech Report.
New research suggests that large language models like ChatGPT are unable to learn autonomously or develop new skills and therefore do not present an existential threat to humanity. According to new information from the University of Bath and the Technical University of Darmstadt in Germany, as part of the Association for Computational Linguistics, they suggest that LLMs have a superficial ability to follow instructions and excel in proficiency in language. However, they have no potential to master new skills without explicit instructions, and therefore they remain controllable, predictable, and safe. The research team maintains that LLMs are being trained over larger datasets can continue to be deployed without safety concerns, although the technology still could be misused. One research team led by Professor Irana Gurjevich at the Technical Institute of Darmstadt ran experiments to test the abilities of these AIs and concluded that the models have never come across emergent abilities. Comment at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
With Tuesday Sports on America in the Morning, here's Robert Workman.
Baseball Monday, the Dodgers shut out the Mariners 3-0. Gavin Stone and the Quarrymen allowed just 2 hits. Gavin Lux and Max Muncy both went deep in the 7th inning. A's blanked the Rays 3-0. Joe Boyle and the Simmers with a 2-hitter. J.J. Bleday's first inning tater was plenty. Royals down the Angels 5-3. Seth Lugo went 7 strong for his 14th win. That ties him for the league lead.
Well, I think so. I mean, we had a little rough series in Minnesota, and bounced back with 5 wins after that. It's something we all feel together. It's a team sport, and we're all doing it together.
Salvador Perez drove in 3. KC has won 5 in a row. Diamondbacks reeled in the Marlins 9-6. Rookie Adrian Del Castillo hit his first grand slam in the bigs and had 6 runs batted in. Astros shaded the Red Sox 5-4. Yainer Diaz ended it with a solo shot in the 9th. Mets clipped the Orioles 4-3 on a walk-off dinger from Francisco Alvarez. 2 homers from Corey Seager powered the Rangers past the Pirates 4-3. Reds broke open a tie game with a 4-run 6 to beat the Blue Jays 6-2. Giants over the White Sox 5-3. Padres turned back the Twins 5-3. NFL, the Commanders officially named number 2 overall draft pick Jaden Daniels as their starting quarterback for the opener at Tampa Bay on September 8th. The 2023 Heisman Trophy winner beat out veteran Marcus Mariota for the job, though Daniels worked with the first-team offense pretty much all throughout training camp. College football tees it up this Saturday with 4 games, starting in Ireland with 10th-ranked Florida State against Georgia Tech in Dublin, and wrapping up in Honolulu with Delaware State against Hawaii. NASCAR, Tyler Reddick won the rain-delayed race at Michigan International Speedway on Monday, his second checkered flag this year, and that moves him ahead of Kyle Larson atop the point standings with just 2 races left before the playoffs. That's Tuesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. When we return on America in the Morning, U.S. Marine hailed a hero after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. A trailblazer in the television talk show genre has passed away. Kevin Carr reports on the passing of Phil Donahue.
Legendary talk show host Phil Donahue passed away on Sunday night following a long illness, his family announced yesterday. He was 88. Born in Cleveland in 1935, Phil Donahue was a pioneer in daytime talk shows. In 1967, he began hosting The Phil Donahue Show on WLWD in Dayton, Ohio. He did the show in front of a live studio audience and took questions from that audience, which made the show unique. The Phil Donahue Show was syndicated and moved to Chicago a few years later. During the production, he met his future wife, actress Marlo Thomas, in 1977.
You are really fascinating. And
but you are wonderful. I said it when we were off there, and I want to say you are loving and generous, and you like women, and it's a pleasure. And whoever is the woman in your life is very lucky.
Donahue covered everything from celebrities to politics, taking a serious tone on such divisive topics as the nuclear arms race, abortion, civil rights, and transgender individuals. Phil Donahue won 9 Daytime Emmy Awards, paving the way for Oprah Winfrey, Geraldo Rivera, and Ellen DeGeneres. His talk show ended in 1996 after 29 years on the air. In 2001, he spoke to the Television Academy Foundation about ending the show.
The audiences are being prepared on these other shows. We never told an audience member what to say or, it's all manufactured. We were very proud of the fact that we got 200 people in the audience, and what do you know? Maybe somebody will say something interesting.
I'm Kevin Carr.
A Marine killed in a plane crash in Australia will be awarded one of the military's highest honors. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports the young U.S. serviceman wasn't on the aircraft that crashed, but heroically rushed into the smoke and flames to try and help those who were.
Corporal Spencer Collard was on an Osprey aircraft in Australia that crashed last year. He and 2 other Marines were killed. But Collard's father, Bart, didn't expect to hear this.
By the way, your son didn't die in the crash.
It turns out Spencer Collard safely escaped the crash.
We jumped back into a burning aircraft to rescue the pilots. And unfortunately, he was overcome by smoke and flames and wasn't able to make it back out again.
Bart Collard says he heard a song recently that reminds him of his son. The lyrics that stick out are, "The last thing on my mind was to leave you."
He had no intention of leaving us. I think he thought he could go in there and get the job done. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way.
Spencer Collard will be posthumously awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal. Ed Donahue, Washington.
And that's our show today for Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.